We continue our discussion on the government's unveiled campaign led by the Public Service Commission and the Department of Public Service and Administration in Pretoria yesterday. My guests in studio, Phumelele Nzimande, who is the Public Service Commissioner, and Melusi, Ncala, a researcher from Corruption Watch. So we've been talking briefly about what this launch entailed, but here we go. These are pretty much so what it's all about. Public servants' expectations. I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa. I will put you first and provide prompt service. I will greet you with a smile. I will be courteous and polite to you. I will listen to your views, needs, and help you. I will wear my name tag so you know who is helping you, and I will apologize where I cannot meet your expectations. Gosh, imagine if this happens. I might fall over if this happened somewhere where I went in to go and get some service and somebody was this nice to me. I'm not sure it's ever happened, but talk to me now. How do you expect this to be taken up by public servants?
It seems like a huge task, Leanne, but if we imagine if we could all put hands on deck.
Yeah.
Just beginning by just getting the public broadcaster on board, doing what the National Development Plan is asking of media houses to dedicate Fridays to be Constitution Days. And every Friday we beam this. Live, television, radio, reminding everyone. It looks like a baby step, but in fact, it could have the impact of galvanizing so many in the public service and in our society, because they would have something to hold those public servants against, to say, but you have not even spoken to me, you have not even greeted me. How come? Because the Constitution expects you to do that. You can imagine what that would do. In fact, Leanne, what we found out when we went out to countries who are going through the similar journey like us, to say, what did you do with your public service to make it deliver for your country's developmental aspirations? They said just that. They just said, yes, we train, the skills are important, but every engineer, every accountant, every lawyer in the space, unless they live the values of your society, you don't get anywhere. If you look at this list, you look at the Section 1 of the Constitution, Section 195 of the Constitution, it's a mirror of what is there. But Leanne, I'd like to go back to what Melusi raised, because it is very important. Amongst other values and principles that we're promoting is a high standard of ethical conduct. Doing the right thing even if nobody is watching you, and making sure that every cent in your hand goes into what you are supposed to do. And it's about bringing the balance, ethical conduct and implementation and effectiveness. And in fact, Professor Rousseau put it so aptly at our launch yesterday, to say so important is this balance, is that you can't have a high ethical public service that is not effective, that is not treating people with dignity, because it means you have pretty useless angels. You can't, on the other side, have highly skilled public servants who are able to implement, but in fact, they are corrupt and unethical, because you've got effective crooks. So you've got to bring the entire balance so that you are able to have an impact.
Melusi, you know, what we're saying here is this is like coming back to basics. I mean, this is how we should be. This is not really anything revolutionary. I mean, this is talking to human nature, how we should be brought up and how we should treat each other. It doesn't matter where we go, on the streets, wherever you are. This should be the way we behave, but it isn't, unfortunately. And in a country where values and ethics are trampled on by senior office bearers who take vows, we've got state capture commissions that are taking place right now, where we're hearing horrific stories of how our money is being spent in the wrong ways, in the wrong hands, and given to the wrong people, and people are becoming angry and bitter. you know, when we look at things like this and how we suppose the lowest of public servants are meant to be acting when their leaders aren't, how do we draw that balance? I mean, Melusi, you look at this on a daily basis. So how do we actually get the joint going and making this the new mantra of South Africa?
Yeah, Leon, you know, I'm a bit guarded against mantras. I don't necessarily think it's a psychology that we can wholly think will actually bring about change. Can it contribute? Sure. I mean, it's a mindset thing indeed. But as you point out, it's going back to basics, which means we believe that there was a point in time when we were on the right course, but now we find ourselves in this position where we have to reiterate the quote-unquote basics. And in so doing, we have to then say, have we done a diagnosis? I mean, yes, we do see the symptoms of what we're talking about, the bitterness that you're speaking about, people being outraged, and more importantly, people not being able to be serviced by our police, for example, in some instances, or abuses by officials in the health sector, our children being subjected to the most heinous treatment in schools. So just to bring it to my point, the point is that do we then say we have diagnosed it? Do we understand what's happening? And what's the remedy? The remedy cannot simply be to say that we're going to impress upon people to say these things and, you know, and hope for the best when we somewhere down the line will equip them with skills. You know, we need to also communicate to the public and say, this is what we have found to be at fault, and this is how we're going to remedy it going forward. And also about these values or mantras that are on display, I would also like to see more of an emphasis on issues pertaining to transparency, accountability, and openness. You know, I know that the Commission is about that as well. It's the ethos, but you'd also want to see that so that it can become part of the public discourse more and more. Yeah,
indeed, and these are very, very important points you've raised. We need to wrap up the conversation. Phumelele, I'm going to just throw the final question to you, and if you can be quite sort of quick on this one. There's, you know, there is, like we say, this is your basics. This is important. It's something that we have to start somewhere. And perhaps this is a starting point. And you and I were chatting a bit earlier saying that kindness is contagious. But with kindness, there's a lot more issues at stake. Accountability, corruption, all of these things that create a very ugly face. So in order to achieve this, I imagine there's a massive cleanup that needs to take place as well. Credible leaders need to be put in credible positions.
That's why I'm saying, Leon, it's all hands on the deck. At leadership level, the leadership has to set the tone.
Yes.
And do more than set the tone.
And more than
lead by example. So it goes back to the issue that Melusi is raising. For me, it's not about mantras. It's about information.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get bogged down with diagnosis in thinking that people know what they're supposed to do in order to fix what's being diagnosed. Sometimes it's just about basic information. As you say, kindness is contagious. Just reflecting these expectations here this morning. Even someone who was doing the right thing and beginning to see all of the wrong things around them being done is able to say, aha, I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
Even if I'm left being the only one still doing the right thing, in fact, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes we forget just about good examples that we have around us in the continent. Just look at what Rwanda was able to do. One morning, they wake up in the morning, they kill each other because another is speaking this language and is from this ethnic group and what have you. And they come back and they say, hey, actually, this is not Rwandan. They start with a basic thing, as in cleanliness.
Yeah.
Let's come together and clean Rwanda. President leads by example. They've got their one of the cleanest countries in the continent, starting with just that small baby step. and then regaining the confidence in themselves as Rwandans, and they are marching now into much bigger things, into technology and what have you. So this for me is not just about the mantra, it's about saying, hey, here is what we need to remind ourselves, all of us hands on the deck, all institutions, inside and outside government, because even about the ethical conduct and the corruption, not only focusing on what is happening in government, out there in society, private sector involved, all of us doing the right thing, even if nobody is watching us. Indeed. And contributing to a story of hope rather than a story of despair for our country.
We leave it there for now. Thank you for talking to us here on the program. Phumelele Nzimande, who is Public Service Commissioner, and Melusi, Ncala, a researcher from Corruption Watch. Thanks so much for being our guests. Let us